Hello everybody, this is attorney Shah and we're going to talk about work visas in the USA, working, investing, doing business in the United States. As you know, if you want to do business in the United States, you need a visa, and these are the visas that we are going to cover today. And this is presented by Shah from the Shah Law Group with the help of my daughter Sarah Peerally. Thank you so much, Sarah, for putting this animation together. Without her, I would not have been able to do that. So I wanted to say thank you to her. And the website to check is peerallylaw.com and the phone number 510-742-5887. Before I start, anything I'm going to tell you today is for educational purposes only. You should not act or refrain to act solely on the information provided. You should contact an attorney if you have any questions. And we are going to start with the non-immigrant visas, which means basically you're not seeking a green card at this point. You're just asking for a visa as a working visa, as an investor, or on a business. So the next slides will cover non-immigrant, and then we will move to immigrant visas. The B1 business visa, the most common visas that people use to come to the United States, is usually combined with the B2, the visitor visa. They call it the B1, B2. The B1 usually is not really a working visa. It just allows you to come here to prospect for businesses or even attend conferences. Note that if you are going to conduct the conference, you might have an issue using that visa, so be very careful. There is one exception. It's called B1 in lieu of an H1, which was introduced during Obama time and is given at the U.S. Embassy, at the U.S. Consulate. And it kind of, you have to meet the requirements of an H1B, but since H1B is not available all the time, you can use a B1 in lieu of an H1. I have more details on it on our website, peerallylaw.com. Please check it, and you might be able to use it. I have a few clients who have been able to use it. We're going to move on to the e-visa. The e-visa is usually the investor visa. However, there's an exception, which is the E3 for Australian. E1 visa treaty for people who have a branch abroad and coming to the United States. They can use the E1, but the country where you're coming from has to have a treaty with the United States. So usually most people will prefer to use the L1. So now we have the E2 visa for treaty investor. This is a very frequently used visa for many people from countries like Pakistan, Egypt, Europe, not everywhere from Europe, but many countries from Europe. And also it allows people to open small businesses in the US up to $120,000. Not up to, but around $120,000, and ultimately it moves on to bigger investment. The only problem with it, it's limited in time, 7 years, plus there is no it doesn't lead to a green card, so it is kind of a temporary thing you can use. E3 visa, the famous E3 visa, this applies only for Australians coming to work in the United States in a specialty occupation. They don't need to have they have 10,000 of them every year, and they never really kind of use all of them. So it is an interesting visa if you're from Australia. The F1 student visa, the famous visa that a lot of people coming to the United States use. We should say almost millions of people graduated from the United States, and that's the visa they use. And it is to study in the United States. That's like I said, that's the main visa called F1. And you need to get what we call a school, and the school usually has to be accredited, although in some places it's not, but you have to make sure it is, just to be on the safe side, and get an I-20 from that school. After you pay for the application, get accepted, then you can go to the US Embassy, get your visa. You can also change to that visa in the United States, but there are limitations now. You have to maintain the previous visa in order to merge with this one, so it becomes a little bit tricky, but it is possible. And after you complete, usually, or during the time when you are in the school, you can apply for a CPT. A CPT is a curriculum practical training work authorization. It's not really a work authorization per se. It's more like it has to form part of the curriculum of the study. That means in your syllabus, as we call it. So it's important if you want to take a CPT that it forms part of that. And we don't recommend people taking CPT on day one, although it's very tempting because there are many issues that we see down the road when you're changing to another visa if you use CPT. Now, there is something called after completion of your studies, you can get an OPT, an optional practical training. Usually, it's for 1 year. However, if you're in STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, you might be able to get an extension for 24 months extra, but there are very many conditions attached to that, so be very careful. There's also the pre-OPT, and that's some conditions some school will allow you to do that. So make sure that you get this. If you want to use your OPT, make sure you do it properly, because an OPT wrongly used might cost you a lot, and we have talked extensively about it. You can refer to our website for that. H1 visa. The H1 visa is the most interesting visa that you can have. The H1B, especially, they have a 65,000 cap and a 20,000 for master's degree. The master's degree has to be obtained from the United States, and it has to be from a public or a non-profit. Plus, it also has to be from an accredited school. Very important, because some people made it to the cap. Later, they find out that they didn't have the master's degree, and then they take away the H1B. So H1B is a very interesting visa. It requires a specialty occupation, and a specialty occupation is usually defined under the ONET book as an occupation which requires a minimum of a bachelor's degree. And this is where it gets very tricky, because even if the ONET book says it may require, they are not really happy about that. They will ask for more. And to prepare an H1B requires a lot of work now. It's not like before. So if you need help on that, give us a call, 510-742-5887. Then you have the H2A for agricultural workers, and you have the H2B for seasonal workers. And the part also which is interesting, your dependent, the H4, gets they are the dependents of the H1 visa. It allows sometimes a work permit in certain circumstances, and the new law which was passed by Obama, but that law might go away soon, so we don't know yet. But still, people are using it to get a work permit if they have a green card pending for them under the I-140 petition, or they have passed 6 years and they got an extension. So it's one of the most interesting visa that you can have. So check it out and see if you need help. Again, call us. The number is below, 510-742-5887. Let us move on to the I visa. The I visa are for reporters and journalists coming to the United States for special reporting or any reporting. So that's the one that is used by many journalists and reporters. So I'm not going to talk too much about it, because it's rare, and some people do use it. So I'm going to move on to the next visa, which is J visa, and it's very interesting. The J1 visa. This is an interesting visa, but it is subject to many issues. However, it is something which is ideal if you're a physician, or you're coming for a short term to learn and then go back to your home country. It allows exchange students to come and work here for around 18 months, and it can go longer. But oftentimes it's subject to what we call a 2-year residency. And that 2-year residency means once you complete, you're supposed to go back to your home country and work there for 2 years and then come back, or at least stay in your home country, not any other country. Then you can come back. There are those which are not subject to that residency. That makes it easy if you want to change status. However, you can still change status if you have the 2-year residency by getting a non-objection letter sometimes and a waiver, also that allows you ultimately to change or do an adjustment of status. That means going on a green card. However, if you don't get that, you won't be able to get it done. You will have to go back to your home country and then come back. And for your dependents, your spouse and your children, you can get J2 visas, which are the dependent visas. It is interesting in the terms of it's a short term way to learn things in the United States, at the same time get experience, and ultimately sometimes people on residency, medical practitioners use that. It is good, but it's not really something that we recommend using unless it's necessary. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is attorney Shah for the. We are doing a presentation right now on working visas, and we have reached the L1 visa. The L1 visa is a very interesting visa because it can be used both to transfer employees, but also can be used as some kind, quote unquote, an investor visa. The L1A transferee visa is the first one, the most interesting one. It requires that you are a foreign executive or an international in a managerial capacity, and you are being transferred here in the same capacity, and you have worked in that company, the foreign company, in the past 3 years for 1 year. And also the two companies have to be related somehow as a subsidiary, an affiliate, or a branch. The L1A itself is for employees, like I said, but oftentimes people can also use it as a, for example, you can open a branch in the US and you can ultimately put it as an L1A, and you move to L1A in the United States. L1B is a little bit different, although kind of the same requirements, except you don't have to be a manager or an executive, but you have to be in a specialty occupation requiring a bachelor's degree. Note that L1A doesn't require a bachelor's degree. L2 for dependents are advantage. If you have dependents like your spouse and your children, they can all get a work permit. Of course, the children has to be over 13 for a work permit, but the spouse can get a work permit. So a very interesting visa. Check it out. We have more details on it on our website. The M student visa, it's for M1 visa holders are for technical and vocational programs. Usually people like pilots and or people coming on vocational programs will use that. It's not very common, but it is used kind of frequently. It used to be used a lot before, but now we don't hear too much from them, especially from our office. So I'm not going to dwell on that. I just wanted to mention this is an option for people coming for to come for some kind of technical training or vocational programs. The O visa, interesting visa for people of extraordinary abilities. The O1 non-immigrant visa is for individuals who possess extraordinary abilities in science, arts and education, business or athletics, or who have demonstrated a record of extraordinary achievement in the motion picture or television industry. So basically for actors, hotshot actors, actresses, musicians, you might want to look into the O1. And you can be recognized nationally or internationally. And the good thing with the O1 is that there's no limitation on the cap, so you can always file it. For those people who don't qualify for H1B, they might qualify for an O1. And of course, you have the O1A, O1B, and O2 dependents, etc., O3. So your dependents can come and also have a work permit. So the O1, the part which is I like the most with the O1 is that ultimately, if you qualify for the O1, you might qualify for an EB1A. The EB1A, which I'm going to discuss later, is a straight green card going and especially if you're from India, where the waiting time and other categories are high, EB1s are less waiting time. Plus, EB1A doesn't require any employer, and also it can be used very efficiently if you know how to use it. So I recommend that you look into the O1 if you qualify for it, and then or call our office. We will do an assessment for you. Now we will discuss about the P visa. The P visa, like Peter, the P1 classification applies to you if you are coming to the United States temporary to perform at a specific athletic competition as an athlete. For example, you have Olympics or any kind of athletic competition. The P visa is a visa that you will want to get, and you can come as an individual or part of a group, and it has to be at an internationally recognized level. So if you are an athlete or even someone performing for P1 is someone performing it as an athlete, and is for the P2 it's something different. So we didn't cover the P2, so I'm going to move on to the next slide now and talk about the Q visa, cultural visas, the cultural exchange visas for those performers or people coming on cultural grounds. The Q visa is the one to move on. And before I was moving to the Q visa, I was talking about the P2, which are for singers, etc. So you can use either the Q or the P. Unfortunately, I don't really do a lot of those cases, so I'm not going to give more details about that. So I'm limiting myself to those visas that I really kind of handle. So now we have, of course, the Q1 if you are seeking to participate in an international cultural exchange, and on to the R visa, the R1 visa, a very interesting visa because these are for people who are coming for a non-profit religious organization and to perform work at least 20 hours per week, usually for ministers and in other also in another religious vocation also or occupation, at least part-time. The issue right now we're having with the R1 for those people who are not ministers, that means not priests, visa. So you might want to check that before you move on to this visa. So let's talk about the TN visa, final one. The TN NAFTA visa, very interesting for Canadians and also for Mexicans nationals. You have to, it's under the North American Free Trade Agreement created and a special economic and trade relationship for the United States with Mexico and Canada. The TN requires, gives you a temporary entry. It works like an H1B, although it's easier sometimes to get it, provided you fall into the category of the exhibit, NAFTA exhibit, where certain professions only will qualify under that. So renewing it is not very difficult usually. A letter and you go to the border and come back, it should work. But a very good visa. Unfortunately, it doesn't lead to a green card and it's a non-dual intent visa. That means you're not supposed to really seek a green card through it. But it's a good visa. You might be able to use that. And I think now at this point we have concluded on the non-immigrant visa. We're going to move to the immigrant visa in a few and talk a little bit about the straight green cards. So we'll say I concluded with the non-immigrant visa. Now we're talking about the immigrant visas, which are the green card. These are for permanent residence application for employment, investors, and business people. EB1, my favorite visas, green card, I should call it. It is EB1A are for people of extraordinary ability, and EB1B outstanding professors and researchers, EB1C for multinational managers or executives. EB1A is very interesting because it doesn't require an employer, and we do a lot of them in our office, requiring basically that you are someone of extraordinary ability and outstanding in your field. It's usually, most people think it's for PhDs, but it's not only for PhDs. You don't need to have a PhD, I repeat that, to have an EB1A. In fact, many of our cases, they just have a master's degree. You just have to be outstanding in your field, and that, if we can prove that, we can show that with some citations, publications, etc., we might be able to get you an EB1A. As for EB1B, it requires to be petitioned by most of the time by universities, research facilities, etc. It requires an employer, and it's kind of similar to EB1A, except the standard is lowered, but you need an employer. EB1C, very much like the L1A, except this is a green card, but you don't have to be an L1A to file for an EB1C. EB1A and EB1B you can file under premium, which means you can get a result pretty fast, while EB1C you don't have a premium, which takes a little bit longer to get. But all of them has a big advantage, especially if you're like from countries like India, where there's a long waiting time on EB2 and EB3. If you qualify for an EB1A, I recommend that you call us 510-742-5887. We should be glad to assess your case. EB2 green cards, these are usually through a labor certification. In order for you to move forward, you have to have an advanced degree, and that means a bachelor of 4 years equivalent, US equivalent, and 5 years of experience, or a master's degree. It also requires the labor certification process is the first part. Then the second part is the I-140, and the last part is the adjustment of status, I-45. In some cases, I-140 and I-45 can be filed together depending on your country of birth. So this is the most frequent one used by people coming to the United States on H1B to get a green card. And it is a long process. And if you need help, of course, doing those, we'll be glad to help you. But there's another EB2, which is called the National Interest Waiver. The interesting part, the word national interest waiver means you don't need a labor certification. That means you don't have to go to the Department of Labor to get it, and you don't need an employer. And this is kind of an EB1A, but an EB2 category. Very interesting one. It still requires a bachelor's degree plus 5 years of experience. The bachelor has to be 4 years, a US equivalent, and it has to be purely academic or a master's degree. And we do a lot of those, especially if you're of national interest, of extrinsic merit. And the good thing is that the only standards that are set are by some case law, and I'm not going to discuss about that. I have extensively discussed about national interest waivers on other YouTube videos, so please refer to that. But it's a very interesting green card way to come to the United States, especially if you're born not from India or China, because there's no waiting time on it. So look into that, and we can help you. If you need help, call us. EB3 category, same, requires a labor certifications for skilled worker, professional, or other workers. If you have less than 5 years of experience, even you have a 4 years bachelor degree, you are a skilled worker, you can still get a green card, but you fall into a category of EB3, which has a waiting time for most countries of the world, and for India and China, a longer waiting time. Well, not China, and not China really, not such a long time than EB2, but India is still a little bit longer. So if you don't qualify on other kind of labor certification, that's the one to use. But it's very tricky, and it requires, of course, a labor certification also. EB4 for religious workers, ministers and non-ministers in religious vocations and occupations can immigrate to the United States to perform religious work in a full-time compensated position. EB4 is very much attached to the R1 visa, although it's not required to be an R1. You can file straight an EB4. There is a waiting time right now, but not too long for some countries. So if you want to be a minister, that means basically a priest, an imam, or a minister, you can use the EB4 to get a green card. Very interesting one, and we have done a lot of them. And if you need help also, give us a call. We will help you with the EB4 category. EB5 category, my least favorite visa, but it's a green card that a lot of people have used to come to the United States. It's quote unquote buying a green card, as we call it. You invest $500,000 as the law stand at this point. It's $500,000 or $1 million, and you can get a green card in the US. What they give you is a conditional green card, and ultimately you need to remove that condition before you get the green card. And it's usually for a commercial enterprise. You can have your own, or you can buy from the project that has already been approved by the USCIS. And many times people unfortunately get tangled into fraudulent enterprises. So I will recommend you do your homework before you move forward on an EB5 existing project. You need, of course, if it is an existing project, you don't need the 10 employees because they already took care of that. But if you're doing your own, you will need 10 full-time job employees, US workers. And it's the fifth category of employment based. It's more like an investment visa, but they call it an employment based. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have covered most of the main visas that you have seen, that you will hear about in the US immigration system. There are many other visas out there, mostly for family petitions and asylum, etc. So I recommend that you check with an attorney if you need any help. 510-742-5887, 510-742-5887. Anything I told you today is for educational purposes only. You should not act or refrain to act solely on the information provided. You should contact an attorney if you have any questions.